Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a pretty exciting journey, I think. Way back to the very beginnings of Western philosophy.
Right back to the start.
Yeah, we're talking about the Presocratics, the original thinkers trying to figure out the cosmos, the physicists before physics almost.
Exactly. But we're not just tracking atoms or elements today, are we?
No, not the usual stuff. Our mission, our deep dive today, is about how these incredibly early thinkers tackled maybe the toughest question there is. Where does evil come from? Why is there pain, fear, suffering? How did that get baked into the universe?
It's like looking at philosophy's birth certificate, you could say, and trying to find where they first wrote down suffering. Before these guys, if you asked why bad things happen, well, the answer was basically gods.
Right. Fate, Moira, or maybe Zeus was having a bad day.
Pretty much. The huge shift, the revolution with the Presocratics was this hunt for the archa, that fundamental principle behind everything, something that wasn't just divine whim.
Okay, let's really dig into that shift right away. Because the sources, they really hammer this home, don't they? Across all these different thinkers, there's this one big thing they agree on. Mm-hmm. They all basically refuse to say evil exists because the gods wanted it to. That's huge. Not just philosophy changing, that's culture changing.
It really is. It's the moment explanation shifts from theology, from myth, to physics and cosmology, trying to explain the world's flaws, its suffering. They looked at evil, that faithful companion of every sentient being, as one source puts it.
Vivid.
And they didn't blame angry gods. They tried to find the source in how reality itself is built, in its mechanics, its structure, maybe its inherent instability. Genuinely philosophical explanations rooted in how the cosmos works.
And that move, well, it suddenly makes the problem of evil something you can investigate, something potentially solvable through reason, not just prayer or sacrifice. Okay, so to help you navigate this, because there are quite a few different ideas floating around.
A lot of different takes, yeah.
We've kind of grouped their strategies into three main buckets. First, we'll look at thinkers who saw evil as a disruption, like a break from some kind of perfect original state.
Okay.
Second, we'll get into the dualists, those who thought, no, it's more like an eternal fight between two opposing forces, good versus evil, basically.
The classic setup.
Exactly. And finally, the real radicals, the ones who try to say, maybe evil isn't even real, or maybe it's relative. And that leads somewhere fascinating, focusing on us, on human responsibility.
It's a great roadmap. You can really see philosophy wrestling with suffering for the first time, trying different angles. Hashtag evil as disruption of primeval harmony, Anaximander.
Right, let's start with Anaximander, from Miletus, one of the real pioneers. And his core idea, it's pretty profound. He's basically saying badness isn't something created like on purpose. It's just what happens when the universe exists in a messy, differentiated state.
Yes, exactly. And to get that, you have to go back to his archa, his fundamental principle. Anaximander called it the epiron.
The boundless, the indefinite.
Those are the usual translations, yeah. The limitless. Think of something eternal, inexhaustible, perfectly balanced within itself. Pure potentiality, just there. And because of that perfection, that equilibrium, well, the hypothesis is that the apiron itself represents goodness for Anaximander.
Okay, that makes sense. Goodness equals perfection, balance, permanence. So if the original state is this pure, perfect good, how does the bad stuff, the conflict, the pain, what we call evil, how does it get into the system?
It creeps in during the process of creation itself.
Right.
Through what he called generative interaction, or maybe more specifically, the act of separating off. Hypocrisis.
Separating off.
Yeah. The world we live in, the one we see and feel, it's full of opposites, right? Hot and cold, wet and dry. These opposites, according to Anaximander, were sort of pulled out of, differentiated from, that perfect, unified apiron. And that very act of separating, of creating distinct things, that's the source of badness. The world that results is unstable. It's caught in cycles of generation, destruction. It stands in contrast to the perfection of the boundless.
Wow. So the world we experience, our reality, it's fundamentally an aberration, a kind of unstable spinoff from a perfect source.
That seems to be the implication, yes. But here's where it gets really interesting. Anaximander doesn't just describe the physics of it. He turns it into a moral problem. This struggle between the opposites, like hot fighting cold. He doesn't just say it's natural, he calls it an intrinsically unjust conflict.
Unjust? How can hot fighting cold be unjust?
Well, think about it from the perspective of the epiron's perfect balance. Any specific thing, like hot existing on its own, trying to dominate cold, is disrupting that original equilibrium. He apparently saw this as a kind of global injuriousness. The different parts of the world are constantly trying to encroach on each other, to destroy each other, and that encroachment is injustice.
So like in summer, when heat dominates cold, heat is committing an injustice against cold.
That's the idea. It's temporarily upsetting the balance. It's gaining more than its fair share, you could say, and this happens constantly, cyclically.
If the apparent balance is the gold standard, the moral standard, then just by existing as a separate thing, having an identity like hot or wet, you're already sort of transgressing against that perfect balance. Like the world itself owes a debt from the moment it comes into being.
Precisely. That's why the famous fragment says that things must pay the penalty and retribution to each other for their injustice, according to the assessment of time. The injustice is that temporary dominance. The retribution is the inevitable swing back, winter follows summer, cold gets its turn.
That's a radical way to look at the seasons.
Yeah.
So, okay, if things are constantly committing injustice against each other, what stops one side from just winning? What keeps this whole flawed system from collapsing into total dominance by one opposite? Who's the cosmic police?
No police. Just the law. He talks about an impersonal force that keeps everything in check. Necessity. Decretion. This is huge. It's arguably one of the first big steps towards a secular concept of natural law.
Not a person, not a god.
Yeah.
Just necessity.
Exactly. It guarantees that balance will inevitably be restored. Decrees make sure no single opposite, no element can win permanently. It forces the cycle of payment and retribution to continue forever.
So it's not Zeus throwing thunderbolts. It's the universe's own internal logic correcting its imbalances. This necessity is like the old idea of fate Moira, but stripped of any personality, any divine will. It's just how things are.
It's a rudiment of cosmic moral order, as some scholars put it. The world is flawed simply because it exists as separate things in conflict. But it's also perpetually regulated by this unbreakable law that enforces a cyclical return to balance. Injustice happens, but necessity contains it.
Okay, so Anaximander sees evil emerge from a broken unity. But other Presocratics, they took a different route. They basically skipped the perfect unity part and said, nope, good and evil were always here as opposing forces locked in a fight.
Right. This approach gives us some really clear-cut frameworks. You've got one principle explicitly labeled good and another labeled evil, and they're just fundamentally at odds. This is where philosophical dualism really gets going.
And the Pythagoreans. Wow, they offer a complete flip from Anaximander almost immediately. Anaximander thought the apeiron, the limitless, was the good stuff. The Pythagoreans, they say the limitless is the source of badness.
Yeah, the contrast is really stark. For Pythagoras and his followers, anything boundless, amorphous, undefined, that's chaos. That's the problem. The principle of good, for them, is the limit. Paras.
Limit, as in boundaries definition.
Exactly. Limit is what brings order. It guarantees form, measure, structure, discreteness. It's what makes reality understandable, knowable, organized. It carves structure out of formless potential.
Which makes sense, given their obsession with numbers and ratios, right? Their whole philosophy was about reality being structured mathematically.
Precisely. Structure is goodness, in a way. And this whole idea gets laid out quite famously in their table of opposites. Aristotle actually wrote it down for us.
Oh yeah, the list.
That's the one. You've got pairs line up. On one side, limit, odd, one, right, male, rest, straight, light, good, square. And opposing them, limitless, even, plurality, left, female, motion, curved, darkness, evil, oblong. It's a cosmic sorting hat.
Whoa, hold on. Odd numbers are good, even numbers are evil.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well,
This good female is evil. That sounds problematic.
It definitely reflects the biases of their time, no question. But the logic, for the numbers at least, was about structure again. Odd numbers, they thought, were limited, stable. They always have a midpoint. You can't divide them neatly in 2 by 2. They hold together.
Okay.
Even numbers, though, you can keep dividing them by 2. They seemed unstable, unlimited, closer to the chaotic apparent. So they got associated with the limitless side, the side linked to darkness and evil.
Huh. So imposing a limit, drawing a line, defining something that's literally creating goodness in their system.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just abstract theory, right? It affected how they actually lived.
Oh, absolutely. Because the world we live in, the phenomenal world, it's obviously a mix of both limit and limitless. So it's inherently imperfect. It contains discord, disproportion, a lack of perfect harmony. And that lack of harmony, that's another way they understood evil.
And the body, being physical, material.
Yeah.
That's tied into the limitless, the messy side.
That was definitely a strong current in their thought. The body, with its needs and passions, was seen as part of this chaotic, limited world, potentially trapping the purer soul.
Which leads straight to their ascetic practices, especially for the group called the Archusmatikoi.
Yes, the Anaximander. They were the listeners, the ones who focused more on the rules, the rituals, the way of life, maybe more than the deep the mathematikoi, the learners, focused on. For the listeners, this messy material world, the body's connection to it, that was the problem, an evil to be escaped.
So they practiced ascetic renunciation. What did that actually look like? How did they try to cut ties with the body?
It involved a whole system of rules and taboos, famously avoiding meat, especially certain types. Beans were a big no-no, too, for various debated reasons, maybe because they were associated with flesh or generation. It was about purification.
Purification through avoidance.
And through intellectual effort. Philosophy itself, the contemplation of eternal, unchanging mathematical truths and cosmic order, that was the path to freeing the soul. They believed the soul gets reincarnated, trapped in this cycle, and only through this rigorous purification, living by the rules, thinking the right thoughts, could it eventually escape the body and the messy world of the limitless and achieve a blessed state.
Okay, so the Pythagoreans had these abstract principles.
Right.
Limit and limitless. But Empedocles, he makes the fight much more explicit, almost like a story. He gives us two clear forces, love, Philodes, and strife, Mycos.
Yeah, Empedocles gives us maybe the most narrative version of dualism among the Presocratics. He paints a picture with a clear cosmic bad guy. Aristotle flat out says Empedocles saw love as the cause of good things and strife as the cause of bad things. Simple as that.
And strife gets all the blame for suffering.
Unequivocally. Strife is the disruptive force. It's the cause of separation, division, discord, literally all evil and suffering. The fragments call strife evil, accursed. Its whole job is to break things apart.
And this plays out in his big cosmic cycle theory, right? This epic drama of the universe coming together and falling apart.
Exactly. For Empedocles, the absolute best state, the ultimate good, is the perfect sphere, the spheros. This is a time when love is totally dominant. Everything is fused together in perfect unity, peace, harmony, homogeneous, whole.
Like Anaximander's appearance, but maybe more, blended.
Perhaps. But the key difference is what happens next. The world we live in, the cosmos with all its separate things, plants, animals, us, this world only exists because strife attacks that perfect sphere. It wages this gigantic cosmic battle and shatters the unity.
So like Anaximander again, the world of many things, our world, is fundamentally flawed. But for Empedocles, it's not just flawed by existing. It's flawed because it's literally the product of the bad guy, strife, winning around.
Absolutely. Our current world, the world of multiplicity, is firmly under the domain of badness and evil because strife is currently dominant, or at least highly influential. And Empedocles was really interested in what this meant for the individual soul, or the daemon. This cosmic story leads directly into his ethics, especially in the poem called The Purifications.
Ah, the soteriological part. The idea that the soul is fallen, exiled from that perfect sphere, and now has to suffer in this world ruled by strife. So what's the advice? What are we supposed to do about it?
The path is one of repentance and redemption. You have to live a pure life to cleanse yourself. This meant things like self-control, following certain taboos again. Vegetarianism was crucial for Empedocles.
Why vegetarianism specifically?
Because all life was seen as kindred, fragments of the original sphere under love. To kill and eat another living being was to partake in the violence of strife, to harm a fellow exile. These practices were about purifying the soul, lessening its entanglement with strife, and speeding up its return journey to the sphere when love eventually comes back into dominance.
So you suffer now, purify yourself, to earn a better place later.
Essentially, yes. You endure the necessary torment in the realm of strife, but through purification, you aim for deliverance and reunion with the divine state of love.
But wait. There's a potential issue here, isn't there? You said love and strife reign in turn. Doesn't that imply the whole cycle is fixed, driven by necessity, like Anaximander's idea? If strife has to win sometimes, and love has to come back, does my personal effort, my vegetarianism, actually change anything cosmically?
That's the classic tension, isn't it? Dualism bumping up against determinism. Empedocles doesn't fully spell out how individual free will fits into this necessary cosmic cycle. It's a bit of a puzzle.
So what's the usual interpretation? Why bother with the hard work of purification if the universe is just going to cycle anyway?
Well, one way to think about it is that your actions don't change the cosmic timetable. Strife will ebb, love will flow, that's set. But your purification efforts affect your soul's experience within that cycle.
Ah, okay. So maybe you suffer less. Or you reincarnate into a better form next time. You speed up your personal journey back to the sphere, even if the sphere itself is on a cosmic schedule.
Exactly. It makes personal morality meaningful within a deterministic framework. You're not trying to stop the cosmic war, you're trying to minimize your own casualties and make your own return to love's reign smoother and quicker. It gives you something to do in a world fundamentally marked by strife.
Okay, we've seen evil as a cosmic mistake, basically, and evil as one half of an eternal fight. Now we get to the really mind-bending stuff. The thinkers who tried to solve the problem by saying, maybe evil isn't actually real, or at least not real in the way we think it is.
Right. This is a major shift. Instead of asking, where does evil come from? They start asking, wait, is there even such a thing as evil, objectively speaking?
And the first name that comes to mind here is Heraclitus of Ephesus, the master of the unity of opposites, coincidentia oppositorum. His big move is to say good and evil. They're not just linked, they're kind of the same thing if you look closely enough.
He really pushes the relativization of evil to an extreme. For Heraclitus, everything is governed by the logos, this rational principle, this universal law or structure. And all the things that look like conflicts, like opposites fighting, they aren't flaws in the system. They're essential parts of the system. They make it work.
Which brings us to that incredibly famous, often unsettling line. War is the father of all and king of all. Now, Empedocles called strife evil, and Anaximander called conflict injustice. Heraclitus comes along and says, no, this struggle, this polemos, it's actually justice.
Exactly. War, strife, tension, it's necessary. It's what brings things into being and keeps them going. Think about a bow or a lyre. They only work because of the tension, the opposition between the wood and the string. No tension, no function. For Heraclitus, the cosmos is like that. What looks like destructive conflict from our limited view is actually the necessary tension that holds reality together and drives it forward. It's cosmic justice maintaining balance through struggle.
So this connects to what's sometimes called the aesthetic theme in his thought. The idea that things we see as ugly or bad are actually crucial parts of a larger, beautiful, perfect whole.
Precisely. Evil, or what appears as evil to us, is an indispensable component. It contributes to the overall perfection and goodness of the whole universe. If you could step back, adopt the viewpoint of the universal logos, which he sometimes just calls God, then all things are fair and good and just. Our perception is what's limited.
So objectively speaking, in the grand scheme of the logos, evil doesn't actually exist. It's an illusion. A mistake we make.
He basically declares it objectively non-existent. It's a product of human ignorance. Our failure to grasp the logos, the underlying unity and necessity of all things. We judge things as evil based on our narrow, partial human perspective.
You have that analogy of the doctor, right?
What? Yes, a brilliant one. Cutting someone open, burning their flesh normally, you'd call that harmful, evil even. But when a surgeon does it to heal someone, we praise it as good. The action is the same, but the understanding, the knowledge of the larger purpose, healing, changes how we judge it. Seeing things through the logos is like having the surgeon's perspective on the cosmos.
That puts a huge emphasis on wisdom, on understanding the logos as the way to overcome the perception of evil. He also had another related idea, didn't he? Evil as a necessary counterpart.
Yes, this is really foundational for a lot of later philosophy trying to grapple with evil. He points out that we only know or appreciate things because of their opposites. Sickness made health pleasant and good. Hunger, satiety, weariness, rest.
You wouldn't know what health felt like if you'd never been sick.
Exactly. Good needs evil, conceptually, for us to even recognize it or value it. They depend on each other. So in this sense, too, evil isn't just some random bad stuff. It's logically necessary for the good to even have meaning.
Okay, Heraclitus relativized evil, made it part of a larger good. Parmenides, he took denial even further, right? He basically tried to erase evil from existence altogether by radically redefining reality itself.
Parmenides is just, uncompromising. His philosophy distinguishes sharply between two paths, the way of truth and the way of seeming. The way of truth, revealed by reason alone, shows us what is truly real, and that reality is the one being.
The one.
Eternal, unchanging, indivisible, motionless, complete, perfect. And crucially, like the Pythagoreans, it's defined by limit, paris. It's a perfect, self-contained sphere.
All attributes of perfection. Unity, stability, wholeness. Now, if that's what's truly real, then things like change, division, multiplicity, conflict, suffering, all the stuff we associate with evil, they just can't be part of it, can they?
Exactly. The one being, by its very nature, perfect, unified, limited, unchanging, leaves absolutely no room for evil. Evil requires imperfection, division, change, non-being. None of that exists in true reality for Parmenides.
Yeah.
So evil is implicitly, totally denied. It suggested that it's merely an appearance, a cognitive mistake made by mortal men stuck in the other path.
The way of seeming. He basically said, everything you experience through your senses, the whole world of change, birth, death, pain, it's like a mass hallucination.
Yeah.
A story mortals tell themselves that isn't actually true.
Pretty much. The problem of evil is solved by declaring that the realm where evil seems to exist isn't the real realm at all.
But he still had to explain that illusion, right?
Yeah.
How does this false world of seeming, where we do experience bad things, come about in his system?
Right. The way of seeming is his attempt to provide a cosmology for the world of appearances, even while insisting it's fundamentally unreal. And to build this illusory world, he posits two basic forms, or principles. Light, which is fiery, subtle, intelligent, associated with being and goodness, and dark night. Yes. Night is described as heavy, dense, unknowing. It's the disruptive element in the world of appearance. So within this secondary, illusory reality, darkness or night seems to function as the stand-in for the principle of evil, opposing the goodness of light.
But the crucial point remains. However bad night might seem, however much we suffer in this world of light and dark, it has zero actual reality. It's ontologically baseless compared to the perfect one being.
That's the core of his denial. The ultimate solution to evil is philosophical enlightenment, realizing that the world where evil appears is not the true world, and turning one's mind solely to the eternal, perfect, unchanging one. Just intellectually discard the world of shadows. Hashtag the shift to anthropology and moral responsibility. Atomists.
Okay, we've gone from cosmic flaw to cosmic fight to cosmic illusion.
Yeah.
That feels like we've covered all the bases for where evil could come from out there. But then we get the atomists, Lysippus and Democritus, and they do something radically different. They basically stop looking at the stars and start looking inwards, at us.
It's a huge pivot. It starts, interestingly, with their cosmology. Atomism, as you know, pictures the universe as just atoms and empty space, the void. And everything that happens because atoms collide and swerve and hook together based on strict mechanical laws.
No purpose, no gods pulling strings, just atoms moving.
Right. Everything comes to be by necessity, Anakas, through this relentless, automatic, cosmic whirl of atomic motion. It's a strongly deterministic cosmology.
Okay, so if everything is just atoms bouncing around according to fixed laws,
Yeah.
what does that do to the idea of good and evil in the universe?
Well, think about it. If a certain configuration of atoms had to happen because of the preceding configuration in the laws of motion, can you really call that configuration good or bad in a moral sense?
It loses its moral weight. You wouldn't call gravity evil for pulling something down. It just does what it does.
Exactly. In a strictly deterministic, mechanistic cosmos, concepts like cosmic good and cosmic evil tend to fade away and lose their meaning. Things happen because they must. This effectively negates the cosmological importance of evil that preoccupied the earlier thinkers.
So the atomists hit this point. If the universe itself isn't inherently good or evil, just necessary, then where does all the suffering and unhappiness that people clearly do experience come from? And this is the big shift.
This is the crucial transition. They shift the whole problem of evil away from cosmology, away from the structure of the universe, and plant it firmly in the anthropological sphere, the human sphere, the moral sphere.
It's no longer, why is the world bad? It becomes, why do humans feel bad? Why do we suffer?
And they locate the source of evil squarely within the human soul. Not because the soul is inherently fallen or anything like that, but because the soul can become disordered. It gets infected with, well, basically with stupidity, folly, ignorance, and crucially, ignorance-fueled desire.
Ignorance-fueled desire, like wanting the wrong things or wanting things too much.
Exactly. Especially sensual cravings, hedonas. Democritus was apparently quite explicit about this. He said the gods provide good things, but humans bring evil things upon themselves. How? Through blindness of mind and lack of sense.
Wow, that's blunt. He's putting it all on us. Not the gods, not the cosmos, not strife, not even faulty perception of reality like Parmenides. It's our own mental errors.
Yes. He definitively cuts the cord between external forces and our internal state of suffering. This blindness of mind leads us to chase fleeting pleasures or get consumed by fear and anxiety, all of which prevent us from achieving the true goal of life, which for Democritus was euthymia.
Euthymia,
Yeah.
well-being, cheerfulness, tranquility.
Something like that. A state of inner balance, contentment, freedom from disturbance. And the misery we experience, the evil in our lives, comes from the soul's failure to achieve this state, usually because our own ignorance and foolish desires mess things up. So for the atomists, getting to the good life, achieving euthymia, it becomes a matter of personal responsibility. It's about managing your own soul correctly, which creates this fascinating tension, doesn't it? You have this bedrock of deterministic physics where atoms just do what they must.
No free will there.
Great. But layered on top, you have this ethics that demands personal choice, wisdom, self-control. It seems you are responsible for the state of your soul, even if your atoms are just following mechanical laws.
Yeah, how do they square that circle? Are they saying our choices are determined too, but we still have to make the right determined choices?
Yeah. That's a perennial philosophical debate that they don't fully resolve in the fragments we have. But the ethical implication is clear. Your unhappiness is, in a sense, your own fault. If you lack euthymia, it's because you haven't cultivated the right inner state, likely because you're chasing shadows driven by ignorance.
Okay, so if the problem is ignorance and foolish desire messing up our souls, what's the atomist solution? How do we escape this self-inflicted evil?
If ignorance is the disease, then the cure has to be knowledge, wisdom.
Makes sense. Learn better, live better.
Wisdom is what allows you to judge correctly between what's truly beneficial and what's harmful or just fleeting. True knowledge helps you manage your passions, conquer irrational fears, and avoid the distress caused by uncontrolled desire. Democritus apparently had a saying, "Learn to swim and you shall escape evil."
Meaning gain the skill, the wisdom to navigate life's currents.
Precisely. Wisdom prevents you from drowning in the troubles caused by your own folly.
This whole shift is just monumental, isn't it? The atomists essentially cordon off moral evil from the structure of the universe and make it a human problem, solvable by human reason and effort. That really paves the way for later schools, like the Stoics, who also focused intensely on internal state and wisdom as the key to living well despite external circumstances. #conclusion and final reflection.
It really is quite something when you step back and see the sheer range of thought these early philosophers brought to bear on the problem of evil. Almost immediately, they ditch the purely mythological answers and start deploying these powerful philosophical tools we still use.
Yeah, let's just quickly run through the main strategies again. It's an impressive toolkit.
Okay, first you had Anaximander. Evil as the disruption of unity. The very act of the world coming into being, separating from the perfect apparent, creates this state of inherent injustice, only kept in check by impersonal necessity to Christian.
Then came the dualists. The Pythagoreans with limit, good, versus limitless, bad, chaos, and Empedocles with the explicit cosmic war between love, good, and strife, evil, where our world is strife's domain, demanding purification from us.
Then the radical denial or relativization. Heraclitus saying strife is actually justice from the perspective of the logos, making evil an illusion born of ignorance, and Parmenides taking it to the extreme. True reality, the one, is perfect, so evil is ontologically impossible, just an error of the way of seeming.
And finally, that big turn with the atomists, shifting the whole problem. Evil isn't cosmic, it's human. It stems from ignorance and foolish desire within the soul, and the solution is personal, achieving euthymia through wisdom and responsibility.
Now, across all these incredibly diverse answers, do you notice a kind of underlying recurring theme? It seems detectable in Anaximander, definitely in the dualists, and even in the moral advice of Heraclitus and the atomists.
What's that?
It's this tendency to view the phenomenal world, the world we actually live in, the world of change, difference, bodies, multiplicity, as somehow fundamentally negative, flawed, a place of suffering or illusion or ignorance. A realm that the wise person needs to somehow escape or transcend, whether it's returning to the apeiron, the sphere, grasping the logos, reaching the one, or achieving inner euthymia.
Yeah, that's true. Whether the problem was cosmic injustice or strife's influence or just our own dumb desires, the world of concrete existence often comes off as the problem zone, the place where badness happens.
Which brings us to a really provocative final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about this. These thinkers, the Presocratics, they were driven by physics, by a desire to rationally explain the natural world. Yet so many of these first rational explanations ended up concluding that the ultimate state of goodness was something like unity, stillness, perfection, lack of differentiation.
A state completely opposite to the changing, diverse, messy world we actually inhabit.
Exactly, a state incompatible with our world even existing as it does. So, if many of the very first attempts to rationally understand the universe concluded that the highest good meant escaping differentiation, and that the very act of coming into being as separate things was the first step towards badness or suffering, what does that tell us about how we perceive reality? What does it suggest about the fundamental relationship between existence itself and the human experience of value or suffering?